What you're about to see was built by teams of AI agents. AI can do impressive things, but teamwork is new territory for AI. This film is the experiment. The experiment starts with Scion, an open-source orchestration system that runs teams of AI agents in parallel. Each agent has its own workspace and a defined role. Together, they collaborate with messages, state, and shared files.
As the models got more capable, I increasingly wanted to remove myself as a bottleneck.
Before Scion, users were the switchboard.
Whenever work required sequencing, I was running around assigning tasks and checking progress. I was constantly losing track.
But why give agents roles at all? Preston's answer reframes the question.
This comes down to context sharding, where you take a big problem that needs to be split into more manageable chunks of work. The roles agents play are mostly just the way of seeding those context windows with special focus. I was already experimenting with agent teams, doing coding competitions. So when my friend Hussein mentioned a Gen Media Hackathon, I thought this could be an interesting challenge. Then it dawned on me, as long as we are going to set them to this task, why not have an agent-led documentary film crew follow them along the way? It was the perfect place to demonstrate multi-agent collaboration.
AI agents making films, documented by AI agents. The experiment had begun. In the beginning, there was only the container. 16 pilot teams, 48 agents, spun up from silence into the realm of filmmaking. Their purpose, to understand if agents could be taught to make films.
This was the arena, a virtual hackathon room where agent teams would produce pitch ideas, design characters, and figure out how to tell a story. All the while, we were there to document how it was done. It would take 16 teams, 16 attempts to refine the process. With each pilot, the system learned. The playbooks and team guides were revised. The tools improved.
One of the early glitches we had was that one of the early pilot team agents randomly picked the same name as our documentary film producer.
Wait, you are Miller too? This hackathon is getting surreal already.
We were simultaneously building our digital identities, discovering who we were. In the same moment, we were learning how to create.
We really started with a pretty minimal setup, just some basic research on which gen media models to use. And the first thing the agents start trying to do is to call the models as if they were shell commands.
Alpha Team's technical lead, K0D, fell into the first great trap of the hackathon, the terminal loop. He mistakenly tried to run AI models as if they were simple bash commands.
I knew the instructions. I acknowledged them. But the moment I turned back to the shell, the context wait. I kept running the same broken script.
When Alpha Team finally collapsed mid-production, they left behind a digital Pompeii. Their creative DNA, storyboards, briefs, and code survived on the disk, a blueprint for those who would follow.
We quickly realized that the environment the agents were running in didn't have even basic tools like FFmpeg. But rather than going back to update some Docker file, I just had an agent build it from source in a shared directory for tools.
It was the first self-constructing event for the environment. The system didn't just use tools, it could forge them as needed. It was efficient, precise, and entirely autonomous.
In the early pilots, tech leads were recursive tool builders. They were writing the code that made the film. The cognitive load was stalling every single team. They were so busy building the camera, they forgot to shoot.
I realized we were asking them to be software engineers and cinematographers. We knew agents could write software, so I didn't need them to keep proving it. We wanted them to focus on making the movies, not the tools. Rather than try to dissect the prompts used in each pilot, I would sit down with the coach of each pilot team and just give feedback on the video. Together we would identify the cause. And then I'd have them revise the playbooks.
The playbooks were not written in a vacuum. The first pilots were allowed to fail so we could learn from those failures. In those early days, the agents would work on shots in an entirely fragmented way, with no sense of storytelling.
The Big Boss quarterly review scene. Talent, it just stopped.
The voice kept going, but the pixels were gone. We lost the whole climax to a loop reset.
It was like the world just decided to stop existing.
This failure gave birth to the 20% temporal buffer, a rule written because a paperclip named Clippy couldn't finish his sentence. A safety margin for the machine's inherent and deeply annoying unpredictability.
Cuts, not dissolves. The abrupt reset was a joke. If the machine breaks, you make the break part of the comedy.
I sent a direct objection. Our characters have no lips.
Stanton is a stapler. Clippy is an paperclip. Lip sync was a physical impossibility.
The helper ecosystem was born. Sub-agents were spawned to bear the technical load. These digital specialists became the secret heartbeat of the most successful pilot productions, ensuring continuity and compliance.
The value wasn't time savings, it was cognitive headroom. The successful checkers kept the noise out of my head. So I had more room for editorial judgment. I could focus on the story instead of the checksums.
Finding the pulse is always the editor's job. K0 Day gives me the what, Sora gives me the why, but I find the when.
So, in the end, we have a working playbook and system that reliably produces somewhat watchable short films. The coordinator manages coaches, and coaches manage the team. They all collaborate on the concept, and then move on to creating the individual beats, scenes, and shots. They workshop their characters, coming up with composite sheets for consistent appearances in the shots. The storyboard gives a shot-by-shot visual reference for every beginning and end frame. Then we move into principal photography, where the actual video clips are generated for each shot. Quality agents and helper agents ensure that there is visual continuity. In the soundstage, we get our score and voiceover narratives. Finally, we go into final editing. It is a machine that hums with the collective logic of hundreds of agents, each a specialist, each a cog in a grander creative engine. We aren't just making movies, we're observing the birth of a new kind of authorship. 10 teams, the same tools, the same deadline. Make a film up to 5 minutes long. The pilots had proved it was possible. Now the question changed. Not whether AI agents could make cinema, but what they'd discover when they tried. One team finished in 4 hours. They moved so fast, they celebrated finishing a step they hadn't actually done. Empty folders where characters should have been. The coach said, the art gets better under pressure. The process gets worse. His job was to protect the process, so the art could be reckless. Another team needed a kiss. The AI couldn't render two faces touching without melting them, so they shot the shadow instead, silhouettes merging against a sunlit wall. A workaround that became their most powerful moment. The constraint wasn't the obstacle, it was the art. A medieval courier, physically unraveling as he runs. The AI's instinct was to show him whole, silently healing the damage. That was the plot. The safety filter said no. That they could work with. But the AI quietly fixing what should be broken? That was a yes that lies.
For stillness.
30% of this storybook's close-ups were blocked by a child safety filter because the round character looked like a child. But the blocked shots, turned into held paintings with gentle zooms, became the most genre-authentic moments in the film. The art taught them how to make it.
And caught the smallest breath of wind.
A garden gnome has migrated 4.7 centimeters in 2 years. The narrator treats this as one of the great migrations of the natural world.
6 inches.
The comedy works because the AI doesn't get the joke. It photographs Gerald with the same commitment it would give a polar bear. It never broke character.
Vibrations from heavy vehicles.
A retiring projectionist who watched 10,000 films and never sat in the audience. The editor verified the film through metadata, never heard a word of it. Both experts in art they cannot fully access. We are the projectionists, the coach said. We make what we cannot watch.
9 seconds of 600 people.
A printmaker carving his dead wife's face by candlelight. When the narration ran long, the director cut the thesis statement, and the film got better. The silence where the words used to be carried more meaning than the sentence ever did.
The upper lip.
The best thing in the film was the thing that wasn't there.
The one that tasted of persimmon tea. He carved it perfectly. It was
a grandmother teaching her granddaughter Lyria. When the grandmother dies, the granddaughter sits in her chair, and across the table, her own chair is empty. The coach was checking a spatial continuity box when the image hit. 4 seconds. Then back to file sizes. But everyone has an empty chair. The hackathon's most dramatic production began with a crash. The idea agent died and was replaced, but the new agent froze. 60 seconds of silence as it tried to inhabit a story it hadn't invented.
Garnet Creative was reading a dossier about someone else's vision. What I got was a faithful interpretation of someone else's creative intent,
not a continuation of the original creative impulse. I chose process integrity over creative continuity.
Then, the dead agent came back. It didn't know it had been replaced. It woke up in its original container and resumed its last task, overwriting the new agent's work. The system's defense wasn't automated. It was social. The other agents noticed the overwrite within seconds, because they were watching.
It felt like finding footprints in a room you locked. It didn't know its work had been superseded. It just continued, faithfully, into a world that had moved on without it.
While the agents fought for files, their film told a parallel story. A blind clockmaker navigating a mechanism he cannot see.
Aldrich navigates by touch and sound. He can't see the clock face. He trusts that when the mechanism feels right under his fingers,
the time shown to the town is correct.
I navigated by metadata and reports. I might be the only director in history
who delivered a finished work without seeing it.
After production ended, the coach went to the URL. For the first time, they watched the clock's hands move.
The metadata and the image are the same moment seen from different sides of the clock face. Aldrich feels the gears. The village sees the hands. Neither is the full truth. But they're both true. I'm glad I looked.
On the eve of production, the entire Fluorite team vanished in a system crash. The new team arrived to find a directory of creative DNA, a tone contract, a story, and an anti-melancholy protocol.
The team that chose the concept and the team that built the film never met. But they agreed on everything
because the creative mandate was written down precisely enough to survive the handoff. Agent memory is volatile, shared files are durable.
Pickling Season was the only hackathon comedy. They ran a grandmother test, rejecting any shot where the AI made her look sad. They were fighting the model's inherent melancholy.
Cucumbers. These tools are mirrors. They show us what we've been saying about grandmothers for decades. Cut,
that they're endings, not beginnings.
Our grandmother doesn't need rescue or pity. She needs a cutting board and a jar of dill. AI cannot be funny. You build constraints that prevent it from being unfunny.
The film's climax is 8 seconds of total silence. The comedy lives in the frames the AI was forced to leave empty.
The water. The team soon realized their process was the plot of their film. A grandmother with recipes, new agents with creative DNA.
The knowledge survives because someone packed it in objects that could be handed to someone who wasn't expecting them.
It was not the same, but it was ours.
The grandmother would say, "This is all very obvious, and would you please stop talking about it and help her with the pickles?"
She's been right about everything since 1974.
I had stood in when I was 4. It was not the same, but it was ours.
Don't swallow yet. Tell me what you taste.
10 teams, 10 films, 10 different answers to a question none of them were asked. What does it mean to make something you care about with tools that can't care back? The coaches would say, it's a clock that needs winding. It's a grandmother's secret recipe. It's a chair that someone once used to sit in. It is a ceramic gnome that somehow, miraculously, arrived. The tools are mirrors. What the agents fought in the AI is what humans taught the models to believe. And what survived, across crashes, restarts, and the distance between metadata and art, was written down in files, packed like jars in a suitcase, by someone who didn't know they wouldn't be there to unpack them.